Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I worked part-time in a department store a few years ago. I loved that job because I got to talk to so many people all day. I talked to everyone like they were my friends, even though I don't know them well. I got a lot of praise for my customer service. If they had paid me more, I would have still been working there. Most conversations at the cash register were quick. I talked to the person that I was ringing up. They paid, I gave them the receipt, and then they left. And then, the next customer came up, and we started a new conversation fresh. One day, I was ringing up a mom, and for whatever reason, I mentioned that I had bought my dad a really large picture frame for his birthday, but it was so big that I needed to stretch my arms out to carry it. My right arm was sore, and that made this difficult. I don't remember much else about that conversation. The reason that I remember that was because the next customer in line immediately asked about my arm. It was not common for a customer to listen to the last conversation and to try to keep it going, but I didn't think too much of it though. He had all these questions about when my arm became sore and if I was stretching. I asked if he was a doctor. He said no. I think he was a personal trainer, but he taught the class where he showed people how to relieve soreness through stretching. He offered to give me his contact information so that I could sign up for his class. I probably said sure. I finished ringing him up and gave him the receipt. And when he left, I remember thinking, wasn't he going to give me his contact information? Well, I guess not. And to be honest, I wasn't really sold on his course, so I wasn't going to chase after him. My shift ended at 2 p.m. I wrapped up and then went to the parking lot to go home. The mall had multiple lots and mine was a bit of a walk, and then I drove home, which took about 15 minutes. I parked and I got out of my car, and as I was unlocking my front door, I heard another car pull up. I had not even turned my head, but I already had a really uneasy feeling. Sometimes, you just know when something weird is going on. I think my fight or flight instincts took over, and I stayed as calm as I could. I quickly unlocked the door, went in and held the door barely open. And I saw this guy walking toward me. He said that he forgot to give me his contact information. He told me his name, number, and Instagram handle, and then he kept walking in my direction. I screamed and I told him that he could not follow people home. He looked taken aback. I think he genuinely thought his behavior was appropriate. And then I yelled something like, "Don't ever come here again and stay away from me." That made him angry. He yelled about how he went out of his way to come back for me and that I should be grateful. I told him that I would call the police if he didn't leave. And I guess that was enough to convince him to leave. There is still one thing that doesn't make any sense though. Like I said, I had parked kind of far away from the store where I had been working. This guy probably waited outside of the store for me to leave. He probably did not know where I had parked, so I guess he followed me on foot to the parking lot. He probably started following me when I got in my car to leave. I still don't understand how he managed to be in his car at the exact moment that I got into mine. He would have needed to follow me on foot first to find out where I had parked. Out of all the parking lots in the mall, I guess he had parked close enough to see me leave and be able to follow. I would have thought he would need to find me first and then go get into his car from a different lot before he could follow me. Maybe it was just chance that he happened to park near me? I don't know exactly what he did to track me down, but it was really creepy that he did. I called the police after he left. I told them his name and his Instagram handle, but I didn't remember his number. We also found his number based on what he said. They said that they would talk to him and that I could try to file a restraining order. I was going to do that, but time passed and nothing else happened, so I figured that I was safe. A few months later, he came into the store again. I saw him and instantly became uncomfortable. I told my coworker to keep an eye on him, and I ran to the break room. I did not leave the break room until he had left, and that was the last time that I ever saw him. It has been several years now. I'm from England and on a trip to Boston with my friend/team to compete in a Call of Duty tournament. I am male and I was 23 at that time. We were staying in Maverick in East Boston, some cheap but nice Airbnb in a small apartment complex. It was about 10 p.m. at night, and me and my teammate, both of us pretty jet-lagged, decided that we wanted to make the most out of the legal weed and get some gummies. After Googling dispensaries, we found one a 15-minute walk from the apartment. We walked there and all was fine. We got our gummies and then went to walk back. The area of the dispensary was pretty well lit up. There was a Target and a few food places nearby. We walked past this guy leaning against a tree. We are walking away from the lit up area towards the darker residential streets. This guy waited for us to walk past and then started walking behind us. After a few minutes, we decided that this was a bit sketchy, and so we crossed the road. The guy just stopped and stayed on that side of the road. We started walking again, but then he crossed the road behind us, continuing to follow maybe 10 to 15 paces behind. So this freaked us out, and we crossed the road again, but we headed back into the direction of the lit up area. He stopped again and was just observing us. He stayed where he was as far as we knew. We decided to go into Wingstop and get some food. We wondered if we were freaking ourselves out and overreacting. We considered getting an Uber home, decided against it, and then walked back around half an hour later. He wasn't there anymore, so we felt more confident, and then we walked the dark streets back to our apartment, totally fine. In hindsight, we should have got the Uber, but we were not as street smart back then. To this day, I don't know if he was tweaking or if this guy was going to follow us to a darker street and then try something, and I'm glad we doubled back. We got to the apartment, took some gummies, played at the event at the following days, and then went home all okay. So, what do you think? Was it an overreaction? Or something else? Hi everyone. I'm not sure who to tell this to and what to do for my mom in this situation. There's this lady at my mom's gym who wears a full-on mask like a fencing mask to the gym and works out in it. Everyone at the gym knows who she is, but has never seen her face. She even has a sock covering her rear view mirror in her car. Anyway, everyone knows that she's an odd person, but for some reason, she has a personal vendetta against my mom. My mom does not know this woman. She had never met her in her life, and she just started showing up at the gym maybe a few months ago. I don't know. Usually, she just works out and goes about her day. But one day, my mom parked next to her, obviously not knowing that it was her car, which shouldn't matter anyway. And this lady started to curse her out. She was talking to her like she knew my mom and saying things like, "That's my man, you bitch," and all that. It was like she had a fight scheduled or something in that area. My mom is so confused and she's like, "You got the wrong person." Then the lady is like, "No, I know exactly who you are." So, my mom just ignores her and then goes back to working out and then goes home. For the past few weeks, she's been missing this lady because she always goes to the gym at different times. A few days ago, my mom was talking to her gym friend, and then this lady pulls up in her car and literally stops in front of them and plays loud church music. She stares at them for a good 5 minutes and then drives off. And then today, she gets ready to go home after the gym, and then the lady is there waiting for her. When my mom gets ready to drive, this lady literally does like car tricks around my mom's car. Like it looks like she's about to hit her, but then she narrowly misses on purpose. And she keeps doing that until my mom finds an opening to drive and leave. She didn't even want to drive home because she thought that this lady would follow her. So she drove for hours somewhere else. My mom has been at this gym for years and she doesn't want to leave. She's went to the gym in the morning and in the afternoon, and sometimes the lady is there and sometimes she isn't. She knows exactly what my mom's car looks like, two of them, and the main road that she drives on. The lady is always walking that route. She definitely saw my mom one day driving on the road and stared her down. The lady also goes to the gym, but we don't think she has a membership at the moment. She goes inside to use the bathroom and then goes to hit a punching bag really loudly and then walks out. We have a few pics too. I just hope my mom stays safe. She didn't seem too concerned until the last incident happened. She said that she'd file a police report and get the CCTV footage. But I really hope we can get this lady to stop. There's too many crazy people out there. Update. Thank you everyone for the great advice. We're getting the ball rolling. This morning, my mom went to the gym as usual. She was able to talk to the gym staff and the higher-ups weren't there today, so she's going to email them. I also asked her to file a police report as well, so I'm hoping she does it ASAP. She's going to get a dash cam today too and start recording everything. She's just a little sad because she wants to enjoy going to the gym without dealing with this weird lady. She already has enough on her plate. We also found out that this weird lady is, in fact, a paying member, so that's why the front desk workers don't say anything. But still, it's odd. My mom is going to talk to the staff more about the full face mask thing, and I'll update you guys some more later with more info. Update 1. As I said before, my mom was able to talk to the gym staff at the front desk. The higher-ups weren't there today, so she's going to email them, as well as talk to them in person when she gets the chance. She got her license plate number today too. My mom gave me more information about this lady that was even more weird. She said that the lady parks at the gym from early in the morning to like late into the afternoon. I'm not sure if she's living in her car or not, but she's at the gym 24/7. The gym she goes to is within a park, so when you leave the gym, you can just walk around the big park. This lady parks in like the same area every day near a volleyball court. It's always in a corner under shade. My mom's gym friend wanted to speak to her to see what's going on and if he could help, but he stopped because he saw her in her car doing something insane. She was in her back seat with her front seat pushed forward, and she was like clawing at the seat like a monster. So the gym friend turned around and didn't even want to say anything. Then she came into the gym, but she's always carrying a satchel packed with things. I have a pic of the lady, but I'm not sure if I can upload it on this subreddit. Her face is covered regardless. Final update. Here's one last update for this situation. It's been about a year since I've said anything about this, and I totally forgot that I posted this. Unfortunately, the gym staff were no help in this situation. Apparently, they have a rule where they can't turn anybody away from the gym, even if they aren't a paying member. So Masked Lady can waltz in all she wants, which is crazy to me. But good news, my mom filed a report and she was ready to capture more evidence if needed. But we haven't seen this lady in quite a while. She literally disappeared. She might come to the gym at a different time now, but the last time we saw her was 6 months ago, and she seemed as if she didn't know my mom. It was like nothing ever happened. The higher ups at the gym also suck, and they didn't do anything. This happened like 6 to 7 years ago now, so feel free to ask any questions. Your questions might help me jog my memory, and I'll remember more details. I played soccer for 1 year in community college after high school. I knew this guy because he worked for the athletics department. He was also another student. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I had a 1-hour gap between classes. This guy noticed me in the library, asked what I was doing there, and I told him that I had an hour-long gap, and then he started coming regularly to hang out. I didn't mind because he really seemed like a normal guy. He wasn't waiting for anything, but he just wanted to hang out. He brought me little gifts a few times like chocolate and stuff, and he was being a little too sweet for someone that I barely know. I didn't think about red flags back then. With the gifts, I remember that he always downplayed it. He'd be like, "Oh, they had extra Kit Kat bars today in the office. Do you want some?" He never said that he purposely bought Kit Kat for me. I know a lot more about boys now than I knew back then, and I think that he knew that buying me gifts would be too much, but he still wanted to do it without doing it. The soccer season for us ended before Thanksgiving, and the only teams that kept playing after that were going to the playoffs, not us. So after Thanksgiving, we had finals. In that brief period after the soccer season and before Thanksgiving, he asked me about my classes for second semester. To be honest, I hadn't been super organized with course registration, and I honestly didn't know. Also, the counselors were completely clueless. I didn't tell him that, but I remember saying that I didn't want to have another gap hour like this because it wasted so much time. And I don't think that I was happy to hear that. He also asked if I would play another season, and I said no to that. I needed to manage my time better, and playing soccer every day was not helping me. I think my mistake was that I just said too much and unfiltered. I used to do that a lot back then, saying too much without thinking about how it can affect other people's feelings. That was on the last Thursday before Thanksgiving, so no more hour gaps to hang out anymore. We had Thanksgiving break, we took finals, and then we had winter break and everything was great. Winter break was when the real problem started. In the mornings, this guy literally showed up outside my house while sitting in his car. The first time, I didn't believe that it was actually him. The second time, I checked and it was. And by then, it was really clear that we both knew what was going on. He was stalking me. And that wasn't all. I posted on my Instagram stories sometimes about places that I was in. This guy literally showed up there several times, like girly stores at the mall where he had zero business being. He did lots of things like that. He also started pointing his phone at me like he was taking pictures, and that was even weirder. I basically stopped using social media over this. After winter break, this continued. When my parents were at work, this guy came during the afternoon too. I called the cops a few times. They went and tried to talk to him, but he basically told them that he wasn't going to talk and that was it. I think the cops wanted to help, but they could never do anything about it because he was careful not to break the law. Like, he didn't trespass, he didn't make any threats, and he didn't show any weapons. I have no idea what he's doing now, and my guess is that he gave up. Maybe his little obsession kind of became old, and he found other things to pay more attention to. At least, I hope so. But if he still comes by, I have no idea. I think the most challenging thing is that I couldn't tell my parents, since I knew that they would completely freak out. This happened about 6 years ago to me and my two other friends. I'm a 20-year-old female, but I was 14 at the time of this story and we were seeing the new Jumanji. This was my second time seeing it, but I was super excited because my mom had decided that I could finally start getting dropped off when I hung out with friends instead of her accompanying us. After she dropped us off, we went inside, got our tickets and snacks at the concessions, then went to decide where we wanted to sit. This was way before there was an assigned seating, and you could just sit wherever you wanted. Of course, being teens and wanting to be on our own, we sat in the back so we would not interrupt the other movie watchers with our snickering and our jokes. There weren't that many people there, maybe like 3 groups of kids and various other adults around them, but I did not pay much attention to them at all. We wanted to be on our own. And soon after we were settled, the trailer started, and that's when he walked in. I did not pay much attention to him then, but I still noted that he was the last person to enter the theater. I could still remember exactly how he looked to this day. He must have been in his late 20s, maybe early 30s. He was Caucasian, had dark eyes, reddish brown hair, and a short beard. He was wearing running shoes, some jeans, and a white baseball hat, and a jacket over a t-shirt. He did a quick scan of the theater, and he stopped with his head in our direction, and then started making his way up the steps, all the while he remained fixated on us. We were 1 row from the very back, and he sat directly in front of us, right in front of my friend who was sat in the middle. This was the first more noticeable red flag. Soon after that, the movie started. I immediately tried to focus in on the movie, but not long after it started, the man started twisting his hat, so at times it faced forwards, then backwards on his head. That would have not been a problem if it wasn't for the fact that every time he adjusted his hat, he would completely turn his head to stare at us, then smirk for a few seconds and then turn back. It continued on like this for almost the entirety of the first half of the movie. He would then giggle to himself quietly, even if the movie was in no way comedic. The vibes were just so off on this guy, bordering on sinister. By then, I had completely lost interest in the movie, and I remained unfocused on what he was doing. And soon enough, he changed creep tactics, and every time the movie characters told a joke or said something remotely funny, he would full-on belly laugh and then turn around toward us while laughing and making direct eye contact with each of us. And after he probably got tired of that one, he would stand straight up and rotate to face us, smile creepily, and then sit back down. I was literally so tensed up that I had stopped eating my M&Ms, and now my friends had started exchanging uneasy glances with me, and I could tell that they were just uncomfortable as I am. I remember clearly my friend on the left just grabbing my arm, as the movie was getting closer to the end and whispering my name nervously with widened eyes. I replied with, "I know, I've been watching him." I had decided to start coming up with a plan. I already knew that the employees here were unreliable, so I decided to trust the only other thing that I could think of without my mom there: women. It was almost the end of the movie, and I turned and grabbed both of my friends' arms and whispered to them as quietly as I could, "Guys, the moment the credit starts, I want y'all to run to the bathroom, and I'm going to call my mom to come in here and get us, okay?" They nodded, both looking as terrified and uneasy as I felt. About 5 minutes later, the credits started, and the moment they did, we fucking bolted as quietly as we could. Of course, in my mind, every horror movie scenario was playing in my head with me being the last to leave the row, so when I got to the bottom of the stairs, I decided to do the dumbest thing that I could have done. I stopped and I turned around as my friends ran ahead of me to the bathrooms. The theater was empty now, except for him in our row, crawling around and looking under the fucking seats. This felt like it lasted for a couple of minutes, but could not have been more than a couple of seconds. I was petrified. I couldn't move at that moment, but believe me, that I started moving again when his head popped up from the end of the row, and after a jerk motion scan of the room, his eyes focused on me. I swear, his eyes were so wide that I could see the whites from all the way down there. That's when he got up and started running, and so did I. I bolted out of there, skidding on the slick carpet, and shot my way to the women's bathroom, which was 4 theater entrances ahead of me. I could see my friend peeking out to the side of the entrance as I got closer. I noticed that my other friend was not accompanying her. After I could speak again and I was semi-breathing normally, we headed deeper into the stalls, and I shakily asked her where our friend went. She told me that instead of running into the bathroom, she shot off to the concessions where there are sometimes employees. This might have been my first option if I didn't know my theater well enough to know that it was a 50-50 chance for any employee to be there at that moment. We then calmed down a bit more, for we were now in the noisier and crowded bathrooms, surrounded by other people and adults. After like 4 minutes, we decided to take a peek out of the entrance to see if he was still there. And I kid you not, this motherfucker was pacing back and forth in front of the entrance with the most angry look on his face, staring directly at me when I poked my head out. I still don't know why I didn't tell any of the women around us what was happening. We finally called my mom, close to tears, and told her what was happening. She immediately left the store that she was at to come and pick us up, as she could hear that we were very upset. After waiting a minute more, we decided to take another look outside, and thank God he was gone. We saw our friend standing near the front of the theater next to an employee. Turns out, she had just been standing by the worker and watching the man run in my direction, then pace in front of the bathroom, then finally leave. She never said anything to the worker, which I thought was stupid then, and thinking back, it's even stupider. But we were dumb and young. We waited for my mom to get there around the employee, who never said anything to us and was probably confused as hell. We finally saw her car pull up, and we raced out to it and told her to drive out there quickly. After telling her what had happened, she told us that we were probably overreacting, and he maybe thought that we were cute, and that we were the ones who misunderstood the situation. I'm still kind of pissed at her for that. Very ignorant of a very knowledgeable and usually understanding woman. But maybe she was trying to comfort us. I don't know. All I know is that man did not have good intentions, and we had every right to be afraid as we were. Just thinking about it gives me the same goosebumps as I had in that theater. I know that if I saw him today, I would know exactly who he is. Stay safe. Always trust your instincts. Even if you think that you're overreacting, they're usually right. This happened to me in about 2021. There's a bar in a small Iowa town that I absolutely adore. All the staff knew me well there, and I was a frequent regular, even if I was just there to chill. I was out late one night. The tap water is bad, so I refused to drink it. If I wasn't going to drink it, I refused to give it to my cat. There's a water fountain at the park, where the water is much more drinkable. So, I saved some core water bottles from when I was buying normal water from the gas station, and I started my walk to collect water. I had to pass the bar to get there. It was a Friday night, and the bar was bumping, and I just had to go in. There were some men who were there basically all the time. They were there that night too. And after the bar closed, I made my way to the park to collect the water. They had left before I did. The park was across the street and a block down to the right. The three of them were sitting and smoking, super drunk. They drink beer like it's water. They were sitting on some stairs on the entrance to a business directly across the street. I went to pass them, and then they asked, "Who are you? Are you new in town?" I didn't think much of it. It's a super small Iowa town. Everyone knows everyone. I told them that yes, I was in fact new in town. Then, they started asking personal questions, and I lied to them about everything, mainly about if I had a partner, because they found me attractive. And in the middle of this conversation, there was a screaming cat somewhere, and it was loud. I ended the conversation and I told them that I really need to go and get home to my cat. So I went into the park to get the water. It was pushing 4 a.m. at this point, and it was dark. The streetlights are soft ambient or warm orange, and there's little to no light pollution. You can barely see anything. While I was getting the water, I was looking across the street, and I have seen one of the men duck down behind a parked car like they tried to go inside of it. The car never made any noise or flash to indicate that someone entered. I noted this, but I didn't think too much of it. They're drunk, probably being weird. I then left the park, and suddenly, another one of the guys were sitting alone closer to me away from the other two, sitting on a different set of stairs. He tried to make conversation again, but I just kept walking. I again noted this, but still didn't think much of it. I didn't know where the third man was though. Suddenly, the night shift cop I was acquaintances with pulled up to me and asked if I was screaming for help and if the men were bothering me. I wasn't putting two and two together, so I told him no, but the screaming was just a cat. Several people called in that someone was screaming, but it was just a cat, and there were cops everywhere. He carried on and said to call him if I needed anything, so I kept walking home. I crossed the street and pretty much slipped straight into pitch black darkness once I was back into a residential area. But then, I heard someone behind me go, "Psst, psst." I turned around, and the same guy by the car did the same exact thing as before. There was the third guy on the other side of the street. I walked faster, but then I heard someone clicking like they were calling a dog. It was the car guy. And then I seen the other man in the middle of the road going, "Psst, psst." They started to walk faster towards me, and it finally clicked. I bolted and I took a different route, hiding in the dark and waiting for a while before running home. I have never seen them again after that, which is abnormal. I also asked the bartenders if they ever acted like that, and she said no. I don't know why they never came back to the bar, but maybe they did after I moved again or something. I was 17 years old and I lived close to a buddy of mine named John. He lived 3 blocks away with a Circle K on the way. It was a random weekday night at around 11 and asked me if I wanted to go over, play some zombies and smoke, because his parents were not in town, and so I agreed. Of course, my parents weren't cool with it, but I've done it before and I decided to worry about the consequences later. I snuck through the back door and I made my way to his house. I lived in an older duplex rundown suburb, but it's very homey, quiet and chill. It was late summer, early fall in West Texas, so I didn't need a sweater. As I approached the Circle K, I spot a man in a bike across the street, and then he began to pedal towards me. He was about 50 years old, baggy stretch shirt, ripped pants and messed up hair and teeth. He asked in Spanish if I had $1. He spotted the yellow pick lighter that I had in my hand, and then he asked for it. He asked what I needed it for and questioned if I smoked weed. I said, yeah, I do. And he then said that he doesn't and that he smokes ice instead. I said, cool man, and then I fast walked into the store. I didn't have any money, but I knew that I had to get to a well-lit area and away from that guy. After about 10 minutes, I crossed the stoplight street and I got to John's house to see him waiting for me in the front yard. I told him about it, but we didn't really dwell on it. After a couple of bong rips, joints, zombie rounds, and a red velvet cake, I knew that it was about that time and I knew that I couldn't stay the night. So I said my goodbyes, I thanked John, and I made my trek home. I was still stoned and mainly paranoid about cops since I was 17 and I had a little pot on me. But after I crossed the street and passed the Circle K, I felt better since I could see my duplex. As I walked towards my home, I heard a bike pedaling around because it was around 3 a.m. and you could hear everything and the crickets at that time of night. I saw the same bike guy from earlier, and he was eerily riding in circles under a street lamp at the very end of my block. My heart sank and I darted to my apartment, and when I did, he spotted me and then yelled for me. I ignored him and I ran the same direction he was pedaling towards, but I made a sharp left and hopped in my backyard and then I snuck back inside. He was about 200 feet away when I jumbled in my yard. I locked the door and I kept the lights off and I went to the front window where I could see a better view of the street. I saw him looking through the neighbor's driveway. He eventually pedaled away, but safe to say that I didn't sleep at all that night. I met him in high school. At first, it was harmless. We talked for a couple of weeks, but I quickly realized that something felt off. His face is also weird. It's disfigured like Freddy Krueger. I pulled back and I tried to treat him like a friend instead, but he didn't accept that. Instead, he inserted himself into my social circle, talking to my friends, former friends, anyone who would listen, spreading a false narrative about me. If I didn't give him attention, he became verbally abusive. If I tried to set boundaries, he punished me for it. We lived in the same neighborhood and went to the same school, so avoiding him was nearly impossible. Over time, his attachment grew more intense and more unstable. He followed me home once after being kicked out by his mother. I felt pressured into letting him stay nearby, even though I was deeply uncomfortable. One night, after my friend accidentally sent him a blunt message telling him to stop trauma dumping, he responded by sending images of fresh self-harm. I was disgusted by him, but still tried to semi-comfort this adult man baby with the emotional regulation skills of a piece of bread. In response to me attempting and failing to cut him off, he lured a young girl off an app called Yubo, claiming that he was 17 to her. He is in fact not remotely 17. And he proceeded to give the girl chlamydia. When confronted, he tried to flip the script like people would really believe that a social pariah could be overpowered by an underweight 5'1" child. And then, things escalated. He began trying to isolate me, luring me to places where no one else was around. On more than one occasion, he behaved inappropriately and tried to coerce me into sexual situations. I repeatedly said no, clearly, explicitly, but it didn't matter. Eventually, we spent an entire day together running errands. Toward the end, he began acting entitled to my belongings, telling me that I owed him for his time. When I tried to leave, he became agitated and accused me of seeing someone else. He grabbed at my clothing and tried to stop me from leaving. I locked myself in a public bathroom and I stayed there for nearly an hour while he waited outside. I was terrified. I texted my family, begging someone to come and get me. My brother arrived first, and only then did he leave. And after that, the harassment turned vindictive. He gave my personal information to unsafe people. I began receiving threatening messages. When I confronted him, he accused me of being mentally unstable and tried to convince me that I was the abuser. And then the messages multiplied. He contacted me from dozens of numbers, sending disturbing images, threats, and cryptic messages. He showed up at a neighbor's house believing that I lived there and waited on their porch for hours. He harassed all of my neighbors since he wasn't sure where I lived, sending them odd choices of gifts such as cat food and water buckets. And then he involved my family. He spammed my mother with graphic images and non-stop calls until her phone became unusable. She had to change her number, wipe her device, and lost years of photos and data in the process. He somehow found my sister's number too, and she had to change hers as well. We installed security cameras, and we spent hundreds of dollars trying to protect ourselves from someone who wouldn't let go. Eventually, I learned that he had been hospitalized and diagnosed with severe mental health conditions. That didn't undo the damage. It didn't make what he did okay, and it didn't make me feel safer. I was just trying to be kind to someone who seemed lonely, and I learned the hard way that kindness without boundaries can be dangerous. So, to the guy who turned my life and my family's lives upside down, let's not meet ever. This experience happened almost 10 years ago, but I still get chills whenever I think back on it. Please excuse me if this story sounds a bit strange at times. English is not my native language. It was October 2016, and at the time, I was a student and a member of the student council of my department. October also means the start of the semester, and at German universities, this is when the so-called freshman week takes place. These consist of various events organized by students from higher semesters to welcome the new freshmen. I was the main organizer of our freshman week. It was a Monday, and I woke up at 5 in the morning so I could be there earlier than everyone else to prepare breakfast for the freshmen. At that time, I lived in a residence building that was not an official student dorm, but was mostly inhabited by students. However, there were also many non-students living there, some of them rather sketchy because the rent was very cheap. Each floor was divided into apartments on the left side and apartments on the right side, and to get to either side, you had to open an additional door. The door to the side of my floor always squeaked very loudly. I stepped out of the small bathroom of my one-room apartment, and then I stood in front of my mirror to put on makeup. To my left, less than a meter away, was my apartment door, and to my right was the rest of the room. While I was getting ready, I heard the loud squeaking of the door that led from the stairwell into our hallway. Since I didn't hear anyone leave their apartment, it had to be someone coming in from outside and heading back to their apartment. That was nothing unusual, even at that hour. Many students were just coming back from partying, so I continued doing my makeup. However, several minutes passed, and I realized that I never heard anyone open their apartment door and then go inside. I looked at myself in the mirror when I suddenly felt extremely uneasy. A strange feeling washed over me, and I felt lightheaded. I had the distinct feeling that someone was watching me. I slowly turned my head to the left, and I looked at the large peephole in my apartment door. Because of its size, it usually let in a lot of light from the hallway, which was never turned off. But this time, the peephole was dark. That is when it hit me. Someone was standing directly in front of my apartment door, less than a meter away from me, separated only by a fragile door, watching me. I noticed my body starting to tremble. I did not want to go to the light switch because it was right next to the door, so instead, I moved to the right side of the room and I sat down on my bed. From there, no one could see me anymore because a wall was in between. I waited for minutes, and I do not remember how long exactly, until I heard the squeaking of the hallway door again. He's gone, I thought. Or is he? I quickly finished getting ready, packed my things, and I knew that I had to leave. But I was terrified to open that door. What if the other person only pretended to leave? What if I open my door and then he jumps at me? Hesitantly, I pressed down the door handle, opened the door, and nothing. He was gone. When I got downstairs, there was a man that I had never seen before standing by the entrance smoking a cigarette. I greeted him and I looked him straight in the face, and he looked back at me without any kind of emotion. Looking back now, it became clear that someone must have seen my light turn on from the street below. It must also have been someone who knew the structure of the building, because the apartments are not easy to find if you don't know your way around. At some point, I also checked what you can see when looking into my apartment from the outside through the peephole. That was the next shock. You could see everything, just slightly zoomed in. While the stranger was standing at my door, He could watch me doing my makeup in detail, and he also saw the exact moment when I turned toward him and our eyes met through the peephole. It is definitely not as creepy as the other stories, but it frightened me for a very long time. So, to the weird guy who watched me, let's not meet again. To start with, I'm a 27-year-old female, and I'm a reporter for a small-time local news channel. The work I do mostly pertains to writing scripts and asking questions, and later saying them on camera, sometimes interviewing passersby to get public opinion. The day started just like any other day. The city was tearing down a lot of smaller hospitals in the area and creating one large one in the center of town, which had mixed feelings in the public eye. I was in the downtown area with my camera crew, asking people about their opinions on the matter. Many people were against it because it meant a farther drive from their homes, but having a newer hospital is never a bad thing either. Most people tended to say either or. However, that changed when I interviewed one man. Looking about mid-30s with a red baseball cap and a denim jacket on. If he hadn't been interested in talking, I would have simply ignored him. But while he seemed all too eager to talk to me, he didn't seem very concerned with the topic. Instead, he started asking about me, first asking my opinion on the subject, which I deflected saying that I was interested in his thoughts about it. But afterwards, he started asking things that weren't even related to the hospitals. He started asking me about my job as a reporter and how it affected my personal life since I was quote-unquote famous. I assured him that I wasn't famous, but then he continued asking me personal questions, including about my love life. I informed him that those were none of his business, but he didn't seem to take the hint. He kept trying to talk to me until I flat out told him to leave. It took him a while to do so, but eventually he got the message. He looked a bit offended, but then said, "Oh, I'm sorry. You're probably busy with work," before walking off. I felt a bit weirded out by it, so we took a break from recording and had lunch before going back to work. The rest of the workday was more or less the same as before the weird guy. It wasn't until we were packing up for the day that I saw the man again. He simply walked back up to us again and started talking to me. I tried to tell him that we were finished filming and there wasn't anything else to talk about. But he didn't take no for an answer. He then asked me for my phone number. That's when the pieces started to click into place. He was being so weird because he was trying to make a pass at me. I kindly told him no and that I wasn't interested. And fortunately, he wasn't so keen on my answer. He then asked me if I was single or not, and then said that whatever man I had was probably an asshole and that he could treat me so much better. He started raising his voice at me and calling me a bitch for playing with his feelings. That's when my cameraman David stepped in. He wasn't in the best of shape, but he was a big guy, so having him step up and say something was such a huge relief to me. He walked up and got between me and the crazy dude before saying, "Buddy, she ain't interested, so take a hint." The man seemed a bit intimidated by the large man in front of him before glancing back at me again. He called me a bitch before walking off, giving us the middle finger. I let out a huge sigh of relief as I was reaching my breaking point before David turned to me and asked me if I was okay. I gave him a little nod and thanked him for saving me, and I get into the van and try to calm down as we drive back to the station. I never saw the creep with the red cap and denim jacket again, and I hope that I never, do. This happened to me over the past year, and I still get anxious thinking about it. To give you some context, I'm a 28-year-old woman living in a small town in upstate New York. My family has always been close-knit, but we have had our share of struggles, particularly with health issues. My father passed away 5 years ago due to complications from poor health. He had diabetes and also heart problems, and his death was a wake-up call for all of us. Losing him was devastating, but it also made me reevaluate my own lifestyle. I became obsessed with working out and also eating healthy. I was determined not to fall into the same patterns that led to my father's death. Exercise became my therapy, my way of coping with stress and grief. About 2 years ago, I joined a local gym that I absolutely loved. It was a small family-owned place with a friendly atmosphere. The staff knew me by name, and the regulars were always up for a chat. I usually went to the gym at 6 a.m. right when it opened. I liked working out early because it was less crowded, and it allowed me to start my day on a positive note before heading to work. The gym's location was convenient, just a 10-minute drive from my apartment, and it had all the equipment that I needed. The morning crew was small but very consistent, and we all became familiar faces to each other. One day about a year ago, a new guy started showing up at the gym around the same time as me. He introduced himself as Greg. He seemed friendly enough, and he quickly integrated himself into our little morning group. Greg was in his late 30s, always wearing a bright smile and eager to offer workout tips. At first, I really appreciated his enthusiasm. It was nice to have someone to chat with, and he seemed genuinely interested in fitness. We would occasionally work out near each other, and he would spot me when I was lifting weights. It seemed very harmless, and I enjoyed having someone around who took fitness as seriously as I did. However, things started to change after a few months. Greg began showing up more often. Almost every time that I was at the gym, he was there too. He started hovering around me, even when I was doing exercises that didn't require a spotter. He would comment on my form, suggest new routines, and ask personal questions that felt intrusive. I really tried to be polite but distant, hoping that he would just take the hint. I told myself that he was just trying to be helpful, but his constant presence was beginning to make me feel uncomfortable. I decided to change my workout schedule to see if I could avoid him in any way. I started going to the gym at different times, sometimes in the afternoon or even in the late evening. But no matter when I went, Greg would eventually show up. Each time, he acted like it was just a happy coincidence, saying things like, "Oh, great minds think alike," or "Looks like we're on the same schedule." It was unnerving. I couldn't understand how he was always there, but I didn't want to make a scene or accuse him of anything without solid proof. The situation escalated when I started seeing Greg outside the gym. One Saturday morning, I went to my favorite coffee shop to grab some coffee and to read for a bit. And as I settled into a corner, I heard the familiar voice. "Hey, fancy seeing you here," Greg said, taking a seat at the table next to mine. My heart sank. This was my go-to spot, a place where I felt safe and relaxed, and seeing him there felt like an invasion of my personal space. "I didn't know you came here," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, I love this place. Best coffee in town, you know, he replied, flashing that unsettling bright smile. After that, I started seeing him more frequently around town, at the grocery store, the park, even at the library. Each time, he acted like it was a random encounter, but I knew deep down that it wasn't. The odds of us running into each other so often were too slim to be mere coincidence. But the final straw came when Greg appeared near my workplace. I work at a marketing firm downtown, and one afternoon I was leaving for lunch. I saw him standing across the street. He then waved and started walking toward me. "Hey, I was just in the area and I thought I'd grab some lunch. Want to join me?" he asked. Panic set in. How did he know where I worked? I hadn't mentioned my job or its location to him. "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm actually really busy today," I said, forcing a smile. "Maybe another time." Greg's expression suddenly changed, though. His face twisted into a look of frustration and anger. "Why are you avoiding me?" he demanded. "I'm not avoiding you," I lied. "I just have a lot on my plate right now," I added. "You're lying. I can tell. Don't you know we belong together? Why can't you see that? Why are you avoiding me? I'm doing my best to be around you all the time and to see you all the time, but you just keep avoiding me, giving me that fake smile of yours." His words sent a chill down my spine. He had never said anything like that before, and I have never seen him like that before too. I realized then that this wasn't just a series of coincidences. Greg was stalking me, and Greg was mad crazy. "I need to go. Please leave me alone or I'll call the police on you," I said firmly. Greg's face contorted with rage, and then he yelled, "You're making a mistake! You're making a mistake! We belong together!" People on the street were starting to stare, and I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, making sure Greg could see what I was doing. "Leave now, or I will have you arrested," I said, my voice shaking. Greg hesitated, and then he turned and walked away, muttering under his breath. I watched him go, my heart pounding in my chest, and my knees were shaking. I stayed on the line with the dispatcher, explaining the situation and providing a description of Greg and the situation. A police officer came and I filed for a report. But since he didn't exactly harm me, and I could not provide concrete proof of the stalking, they couldn't do more. But I didn't see Greg after that day. He stopped coming to the gym, and I no longer ran into him around town. My friends and coworkers were also incredibly supportive, helping me feel safer during that difficult time. Despite Greg's disappearance, I really couldn't shake the fear that he had instilled in me. I was worried that he was just lurking around in the corners, watching me. I decided to find a new gym, even though I loved the one that I had been going to for years. It really broke my heart to leave that place. But I knew that this was the best thing for my safety and also for my peace of mind. I found another gym a bit further from my apartment, and the staff there were understanding when I explained my situation. It really took some time, but I eventually started to feel comfortable and safe again. I didn't have to work out while looking at my back anymore. Looking back, I realized how important it is to trust your instincts. If someone's behavior makes you uncomfortable, don't just ignore it. Don't just think that it was a mere coincidence. Speak up, take action, and then protect yourself. So, Greg, the gym buddy who took it too far, let's not meet again. Thank you so much for listening to the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And please don't forget to leave a like and also a comment. Tell me what story you got creeped out by the most. And if you can share it with a friend, that would really help the channel too. And again, stay scared, my friends, because your fear feeds me.